Like I said a million times, if it took a genius to do all this stuff, I certainly couldn't have done it because I'm not a genius, that's for sure. If it would take some kind of a master or luthier or woodworker guy to do this, you know. Let's just see what that looks like. And I'll let that set for, a while and take a look at it later. It may need a little bit more, it may not. But that's how you do it. Does it look okay, Pete? The crack is pretty much, I can't find it. It was there, no, it's pretty much gone, And like I said, I won't even trust that. Looks good now, maybe I'll let it set over the weekend and take another look and just make sure. And if it's a little bit open, we'll do the same thing again. It'll eventually, as far as I know, it's probably going to be okay now, But it could open up a little bit, And on the seams, sometimes you get little openings like that, and you do the same thing. That's real. If it took a real genius to do this kind of stuff, I certainly couldn't do it, So. And I've been fixing stuff like this for years and years and years, And Pete too. Pete knew how to do all this stuff long before he came here. That's for sure, And I try to teach everybody that kind of stuff, Just all you have to do is Tiny Grimes. I don't know if I ever told that story on video. You think, I don't think I ever did.
I don't think I have.
Tiny Grimes. If you people don't know who Tiny Grimes is, or was, I should say, Tiny was a legendary jazz guitar player. He played tenor guitar, 4-string guitar. He didn't play 6-string. He only played 4-string. And some of you jazz people out there, even if you never heard the name Tiny Grimes, I'm sure you heard the name Charlie Parker. Everybody knows who Charlie Parker was. And when Charlie Parker first came to New York, one of the first persons he played with and recorded with was Tiny Grimes. And Tiny Grimes was the third member of the Art Tatum Trio. And that's another name that you should know. Art Tatum was legendary, one of the greatest jazz piano players that ever lived. And Tiny Grimes was his guitar player. And when I first came to New York, of course, like I said about a lot of people I met here, when I was a kid, Tiny was one of my heroes, just like Tel Farlow and all Kenny Burrell and all those other people that I met. And Tiny, he's just what a gentle soul he was. Oh, I miss him. And he was very, very, very kind to me. And I used to fix his guitars for him all the time. In fact, I should have had that picture out. I have it over there somewhere. He gave me a picture a long time ago and he signed it for me, and I treasure that. Anyway, Tiny, he let me play with him, He used to do a gig up on 113th Street in West Broadway at the West End Cafe. That was an old jazz club when I first came here. He had a regular Thursday night gig there with his trio and a guitar, bass, and drums. And he invited me to come up and play with him, And it was quite an honor for me to sit there and play with a man like that. There was another guy too, Skeeter Best. Skeeter Best was another guy that was around, was not famous, but he was in that circle back in those days, the days of Charlie Christian and all that early jazz guitar players. And he was another one of those guys too that came up in that old school. And the reason I mention his name is because he had a regular gig on Tuesday nights. down on 34th Street on the, I don't know, between 5th and 6th somewhere here in New York. And he was kind enough, he had a trio. Al Hall played bass. Al Hall was one of those bass players that was around and played with everybody too at that time. And Chuck Folds was the piano player, and Skeeter was on guitar, and Skeeter invited me down there. So there for a while, I had a regular gig on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights that I didn't get paid for, but I can assure you I got paid big time. I got more than money could ever buy. You know, playing with people like that and just coming to New York as a green kid from, you know, that little town outside of Pittsburgh, coming to New York and playing with people like that. That was a real honor, I can assure you. Anyway, the reason I brought it all up in the first place was because I remember one night playing with Tiny, and I guess, well, I was pretty nervous, you know, and I was excited, and I took my solos, and I was getting a little bit carried away, and I was trying to play too much, and it was getting all kind of funny, and you know. And Tiny just looked over at me, and he says, "Carl," and I went, "What?" He went, and believe me, that I got that message real clear. And that's a really important message to get, especially from someone who's at that level, you know. And on the break, I talked to Tiny a little bit, and I said, "I'm sorry, Tiny, I didn't mean this." He says, "No, that's okay, Carl." He says, "You know," he says, "I just want to tell you something." He says, "People didn't come here to hear you play the guitar. They came to hear the music, you know." And I'll never forget that. I think that's very important. And, you know, it taught me not just about music. When people ask me, "Yeah, how did I learn how to do all this stuff on the basses and stuff?" Well, I had a lot of help. You know, there was woodworkers around me in the beginning. But in the very beginning, it was just me and the idea of wanted to make a bass. And I just did that. I had a crosscut saw and a 1/4-inch chisel. I didn't have no fancy aprons, and I didn't have a fancy bench, and I didn't have any of those jeweler's glasses that some of these experts wear. I just, you know, I just had the idea that maybe I could do this. And I didn't have an attitude about it. "Oh, I'll show you how to do it. Oh, I'll show you guys." Oh, no. Don't ever do it. And don't come into my life with that either, or you won't be here very long, that's for sure. Nobody comes in here with that attitude. And if they do, if they even hint at it, they're out of here. So you can do a lot more than you think you can. Like simple things like that. You know. And even if you don't want to attempt it yourself, maybe what I showed you here and what I just talked about will help you when you do take it to somebody who is supposedly a Cracker Jack repairman or whatever, you know. When he starts talking about what he's going to do, you might, the fact that you have a little bit of knowledge about it, you know, will help, you know. And again, make sure it is a little bit of knowledge. Don't go in there with that other thing either, you know. I have a little boy I teach guitar. His name is Wolf. He's 11 years old now. I've been teaching him since he was 7 years old, and I bring him up as an example. This little boy, he is so focused, and he's going to be a great musician someday, I'm sure, you know. And we talk about that attitude thing a lot. And he knows that he's probably doing better than a lot of the kids his age. I know Pete and Joe, when they hear him play, I asked Joe several times, I said, "Joe, how many kids that age you hear can do what he says, "Carl, I know guys 30 years old who can't do that, you know." And I always try to impress. In fact, 2 weeks ago he was in for a lesson, him and his mother, and we talked about that. and how well he's doing. He's really doing great, you know. I mean, this little kid can play all the major scales in 2 octaves easily and in several positions without question. If you ask him what the minor third of A is, he'll tell you. He can play through the cycle of fifths, all dominant 7th chords, all minor 7ths, 2 dominant 7ths, minor 9th to 13th chords. And if I say, play me a 5 shape of a C chord, now raise the 5th, and what do you have? He says, an augmented 5th. Cool, very cool. He's doing all that by focusing and by just doing it. And the last time I saw him, we talked about attitude and, you know, keeping that, like Tiny said, that's really a big thing to me. Tiny Grimes looking at me and going like this. That's where all this stuff is coming from. I guarantee it. And Wolf touched my soul and my heart the last time I saw him. Well, he always touches me, but the last time when I was going through all this with him, I said, remember, Wolf, what you can do is very important, and you're doing great. Just don't ever let it get, you know, don't ever get an attitude, and don't get full of yourself, because you can do this. You know, you just do it. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to go telling the world how great you are. You don't have to have any signs up anywhere. All you have to do is just do what you do. And that little boy, 11 years old, looked at me and said, I won't disappoint you, Carl. That's big stuff to me. That's very big. So, I hope you people are all getting this, because it means a lot to me. My mother once told me, you know, you seem to have some gifts, Carl, but, you know, the most important gift, I think I've said this before, and I'm going to say it all the time because it is very important. She said the most important gift that she thought was to share the gift. So, if you do have gifts and you think you can do something, share it. And share it willingly. Don't do that little thing, you know. Just, yeah. Bing, bang, boom, little baby. That's what you do, you know. you don't use scare tactics like Pete said, you know, and you have to have this and you have to have that and you got to have this and you got to do this and all that. They make it sound like, whoa, boy, if I can't, I need all these tools and I need this. You really don't. What you need is a little bit, put something up here and put a lot here. Put a lot here and a little bit up here and you're going to be cool. Okay, that's it, Pete. We're getting out of here. Say goodbye, Pete.
Goodbye, Pete.